Probably one of the biggest things we found was that we really didn't have a repeatable process that the store would do consistently throughout the day or store to store. Is that as we continue to add new menu items, the way that we had done it was to continually just kind of add new processes on top of other processes, and it really ended up with a lot of steps. It ended up with some very confusing steps. It ended up with a process that wasn't readily repeatable by the stores on an ongoing basis, day to day, hour to hour.
McDonald's decided to implement their first complete kitchen changeover to a smoother, faster, and more flexible kitchen system. It was called the Made for You operating system. The McDonald's system that had been so successful was designed to produce just a few types of sandwiches, generally in large quantities, to meet 2 peak demand periods a day. But the market had changed. It insisted on having a greater selection of meal options, prepared to order. Sandwiches could no longer be pre-made. Everything had to be created fresh for the customer. Changes in cooking equipment and communications technologies allowed McDonald's the opportunity to launch its new concept. McDonald's set about implementing the corporation's first ever kitchen conversion. But after 6 months, only 2,200 restaurants had been converted. According to their plan of finishing 160 restaurants per week, they should already have completed over 4,000 restaurants. Clearly, McDonald's needed to step up its efforts if it planned on completing the conversions by its scheduled deadline.
We had recently gone through a major reorganization of the U.S. business where we had taken most of the staff support functions out of the home office here and placed them in one of our 5 divisions around the country. And our operating model for the new structure was that R&D would be supported and coordinated at home office, but implementation was a responsibility of the field. And so as we went into Made for You, this was our big chance to execute against the new structure. And so we handed off the product to implementation to the divisions, but very quickly it was clear that that was short-sighted and inappropriate. For example, there are 2 major kitchen equipment suppliers for the United States, but 5 divisions. So and each division is of course planning their implementation from their unique perspective and their needs. And so when 3 divisions are all making demands of one kitchen equipment supplier that in any given month or week exceeds their capacity, well, who referees that? Who coordinates it? And we really had tried to be true to our new structure and not get involved in that from a central coordination point of view. And it was within 3 or 4 months, it was clear that that was just flat out impossible.
McDonald's put together a cross-functional restaurant systems team to assess the challenges that implementation of the Made for You initiative presented. The team decided on a few key strategies to ensure the successful implementation of the Made for You kitchen systems. First, they established a Made for You board, which oversaw communication with the many restaurants across the country that were simultaneously undergoing conversion. The board shared successful implementation practices and worked to align resources.
The Made for You board was made up of folks from the functional areas of the business here, whether it be operations, our POS group, the equipment supply group, as well as 1 member of each of the 5 divisions. When that board came together, their job was not simply to make sure that a division got done, but to make sure that the U.S. implementation was completed by the end of the year. So we went back and sat down and developed an overall plan with the minimum number of stores that needed to be executed on a weekly basis in order to make the plan, and also the maximum number of stores that the suppliers could actually provide. It was our job at a board level to make sure that we're staying within that range of stores to be able to implement. Now, for the most part, during the year, we were implementing anywhere between 200 and 250 stores per week, which is an awful lot of restaurants. And once, however, we developed the plans for it and developed the overall game plan for it, and the process went fairly smoothly for us.
As soon as we realized that we needed central coordination for the implementation planning and follow-up and scheduling, we put a team together here. It was a mixture of our employees, both from the divisions and here at home office, all made for you experts, of course. And then we had several of our leadership franchisees were on the team, as well as the suppliers in the critical areas, so the kitchen equipment suppliers, the installers, and the cash register folks, which were the ones that really were critical here. And that team pulled together. They spent a couple of weeks actually together just getting the original, how we're going to manage this plan together.
McDonald's Restaurant Systems team also constructed a made-for-you database containing information on scheduling and supplies. The database enabled McDonald's to track the progress of implementation throughout the country.
So we developed a database in which all of our suppliers and our region shared, and it all began with the regions telling us about when they were planning on implementing those stores. And in this common database, we would have the suppliers put in the dates in which orders were received, the dates in which equipment would ship, the dates in which equipment needed to be at the store, when training was to begin. So we all began to use the same common source of information. It was really fun to be able to watch at any given moment of the day. You could go in and check and find out how many additional stores you put on today or this hour or the next hour. So it became a real valuable tool for us to manage the whole process, and began to be the way in which we were able to get these stores implemented.
In addition, the team created a document library which held all the information related to the Made for You initiative, from communication between divisions and restaurants to press releases and news announcements.
You no longer need all kinds of timers and buzzers and bells that are signaling people, oh geez, I need to go do this. The starting of putting the bun in the toaster is what starts a process that takes the sandwich all the way to the customer. And the team that's back in the kitchen just follows the process from one person to another. There's a handoff process there. And so it's much quieter. In one of the many things we found as we did our study of how to make this really fast and really easy in the kitchen was that communication pathways back there were critical. And so, mostly you think of the product pathway. Where is the product going from and to, and what's the process to get it there? But what we found is that because people are making this food, the communication pathway was almost more important than the product pathway. And so we moved things around in the kitchen so that people can see each other. And so the ability to just look up, have eye contact with the person on the other side of the table from you, look down and see where they are, lets you know whether or not you need to help them. And nothing has to be said, especially with a team that's worked together a couple of days and kind of has their rhythm down. And so it's quieter. The opportunity to help each other when somebody's a little backed up is so much easier. You have complete and total line of sight, not only to each other in the kitchen, but to the customer. One of the things we found early on in the Made for You testing is, especially if the restaurant wasn't very busy, back in the grill area, a sandwich would go up on the computer screen to make it, and we'd watch the crew people, and they would look up at the screen, and then they would look to the counter and look at the customer and kind of almost like nod to them, and then start the process of making the food. And so that whole ability to see each other and automatically help without being asked was much improved.